they've done studies. Instead of focusing so much on what's not working, maybe we need to focus on what is working. What is our strength? You know, you turn on the news and it's so, I don't, but if people turn on the news, it's so negative.
Yeah.
And really there's for every one bad thing, there's probably 1,000 good people doing something good.
Yeah.
And I think our focus needs to change on that. And we need to stop giving the spotlight to criminal behavior as well and to negativity. So
that's interesting because like this whole year for me, or this past year, it's felt like such a like the lesson that I have learned, or the issue that has become so clear to me, for me specifically, has been, how do I find the balance between standing and even fighting, if need be, for the things that I believe are right and true, freedom and our rights, but also then still be compassionate and kind at the same time. Because I mean, I'm genuinely torn between these two things quite often. And I think that I think that this is a conversation you see on social media all the time, particularly as we start talking about mask mandates and all of that, or just wearing masks in general, right? Oh, you wear a mask for other people because you have to protect them and be kind. And so the argument is this kind of emotion-based argument of, are you compassionate? If if you are compassionate, then you will do this. And if you don't do this, then you are not compassionate and you don't care about people. And so I think that you get just an enormous amount of people who otherwise would make a different decision going along with like the mask mandate, because they feel, well, but I'm compassionate. I need to be compassionate. I need to be kind and show my love for people because that's most important. And to me, like, that's why I get so torn, because it's like, I totally agree. It is so important, and to me it is. I feel moved by that. I want to make sure that people are taken care of. I want that they are safe and that they are healthy and happy, and but at the same time, I have, or I should say, and at the same time, I have a deep conviction for and passion for freedom and truth and standing for what is right. And I think that what happens, especially it feels in the Christian community, is that it's easy for us to be manipulated by this ideology of just be compassionate, just love. And yeah, I guess that's really all I would want to do.
I think, you know, it's interesting because I've thought a lot about this and the brilliance of what has happened with the coercion, because you're absolutely right. Even the founders knew that in order to trust people into a new kind of government that had never been experimented, they had to trust that humans were innately good.
Yeah.
That they would want to do the right thing and that they would want to care for each other. But the catchphrase right there is to live life according to the dictates of conscience. Right. So yes, there's a collective effort to be morally sound and morally correct, but it's an individual effort. Does that make sense? It's
yes.
We're directed individually according to our conscience, our relationship with our Creator. And so I'm going to say that the difference between socialism and service, when talking about being charitable, is one is forced and one is a choice.
Yes.
And I will always, that's why liberty is so important.
Yes.
I don't care if I would prefer people to not wear a mask, because I see the psychological effects of what's happening in society, the disconnect. People aren't talking, they're not smiling, they're not connecting. They're afraid of each other. They're even if you're not afraid of the virus, just what you said, oh, I better stay away from people now. Yeah. And we could go into a whole other spill about the numbers of this virus and how legitimate really are we in a state of a threat for lives, you know, and preserving lives. And so I find that you can win any argument by just embracing liberty, which is really agency to
Mm-hmm.
choose.
Yeah.
Choose what is right for you. And there is one thing, and since you mentioned Christianity, there's a parable, the 10 virgins I've been really thinking about.
Mm.
And all 10 were religious, but
Mm-hmm.
only 5 were prepared with the oil. And
Yeah.
that could be symbolic, and that can mean something different to each one of us. But I believe in this context, what that could mean, and I've thought about it, is I cannot give somebody their physical health. That is earned through drop by drop, through
Yeah.
choices, through
Yeah.
practices, through routines, through healthy living,
Yeah.
diet, exercise, sunshine, positive thinking, fresh
Yeah.
air, healthy relationships. Those things contribute to health, and I can't give that to somebody.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a deception to think that we're protecting somebody else's immune system.
Yeah.
And are we so fragile that God failed us that we need to put our trust in man?
Right.
And that's where I stand. I think we have a brilliant immune system.
I mean, amen. Totally. I mean, couldn't have said it better myself. I think that is as I mentioned, my journey and learning about health and studying about health is that, like, there's a doctor who I hope to someday have on here, who's just brilliant, and I admire him so much. His name is Zach Bush, and he opened my eyes to just so many things. But the premise is the way to create health or to be healthy is through the supporting of and the diversifying of the microbiome and the virome. So you have both of these microbiological communities living in and on your body, every second of every day. And it turns out we have this flawed, skewed understanding of what those things are, what they do, and what their purpose or their design was. And that comes from, there's this conversation that went back to Louis Pasteur, germ theory versus terrain theory, where what you're speaking about is terrain theory. Where does health come from? It comes from right choices, healthy living, healthy diet, lifestyle, exercise, positive thoughts, all of that stuff. And that is where our health will be won or lost, or maintained or supported or lost. And so you actually see, as you look at this microbiological world, that it is not our enemy, it is actually our friend. We need it. And it supports our health, and it strengthens us if we live in ways that support it, which is to allow for biodiversity, to and that speaks to the whole mask or the social distancing issue as well, where how do you create a robust and diverse microbiome? Well, you have to expose your body and your immune system to all kinds of different environments, biologically. So different people, and they carry different specific bacteria and viruses, and as we breathe in their immediate environment and they breathe in ours, we create and cultivate this biodiversity. And that's what actually creates this strength of our immune system. And so now we've come and said, it's bad, it's dangerous, it's trying to kill us, and we need to distance from everybody. And we need to stay inside, and we need to mask up, and we need to, and all of these responses are actually creating the opposite result from what we were hoping it would, which is to actually decrease our health,
Well, and interesting, I was on a podcast several months ago towards the beginning of this, and we talked about the efficiency of masks, and there really is not a proven study of it. But
right.
And again, even though I don't like masks and I wish we could all just throw them away, I'm not telling anybody they can't do it if they're comfortable. But Harvard, I believe it was Harvard. It was Harvard or Yale, one of the, big Ivy League universities. Yeah. They did a study with mice about this very thing with our microbiome and terrain theory. And they wanted to see the relationship between our skin biome and the gut biome, because 90% of our immune system is in our intestines.
Yep.
So they took 2 sets of mice, and one group was just living like they normally would in dirt and, just, like they normally would.
Yeah.
And then the other was in a really isolated, pristine,
Sterile.
clean, sterile environment. And they tested the skin and the gut biome from both of them, and it was always parallel. So, and interestingly enough, when they tried to introduce bacterias to both sets of mice, the ones that were sterile really struggled with fighting it, because they didn't have, like you said, their body had not developed immunity or practice. It's like a muscle, it needs to be exercised.
Right. Yep.
And so then the mice that were in that natural environment, they were able to fight it. Well, they decided to administer an antibiotic to both. And they were assuming to find that within the gut, it would wipe out the microbiome, as antibiotics do. But what they found is that the microbiome on the skin actually correlated. They didn't expect the skin to reduce in efficiency, but it did.
Right.
So there's some kind of relationship between the microbiome and the on the skin and in the gut. It's interesting.
Very interesting, because they're in communication. It's like a network. I mean, and you find this. So Dr. Bush's, one of his some quote that he had said a while back was something about like the more I look into the microbiome and human health, and the deeper I dig, every time it comes back to the soil and to soil health. And you look at I'm really into gardening and permaculture, and the lessons we learn there are just beautiful as they relate to human health, the diversity and the kind of the synergistic communal sort of environment or health interaction that is supposed to be there and that naturally will be there, is astounding. And in nature, everything works together just beautifully and helps each other become and stay healthy and thrive and be well. And it's when we get involved as human beings and we start saying, oh no, look, this person died and they had this bacteria. Therefore, this bacteria was the cause. Therefore, bacteria are bad. Therefore, we need to kill them all. And we start going in and we start trying to kill everything, and antibiotics, like you mentioned, and it ends up in the long run creating just devastation, and the system becomes unsustainable. So then we have to keep inputting more and more, and we get sicker and sicker, and there's less and less health, and that works. That's just kind of a principle of nature, it seems, from the soil to our actual, our bodies. And
well, I heard it best put that with terrain theory, the best way to explain it is it's like blaming the firefighter because he's present when there's a fire.
Right.
So viruses are the most abundant organism on the planet.
Yes.
And there's no way, like, people take off the masks.
Right.
Like, we have lived for ages on this planet with viruses and bacteria, and it's about taking personal responsibility for help and stop being afraid. Like, fear just lowers your immune system anyway.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed that video, you can find the full-length interview I did with Alena by clicking the link here.